Getting our host on board. Hopping over to the YouTube. Oh, wrong channel. Sorry about that. Got to get to the right channel. There it is.
Would you?
Ted, is this your dream of a smaller Remo room, by the way?
What's that?
Looks like there are only like 3 rows of Remo. Is this like the Ted's dream of smaller Remo?
I'd have to go back and check. I didn't notice. Might just be the Zoom, but yeah, I'd like Remo to just have 4 tables for small event mode. That would be awesome. Because you know, they give you like a conference hall with 36 tables, and not all events need 36 tables.
That'd be a good way to set up like a small, intimate mastermind that way too.
Yeah, but it sucks when Remo looks like it's a giant hall that's mostly empty. It feels like you're talking to an empty room.
Ordered a warehouse, could put a single desk in it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so welcome everyone. Let me share my screen because we do in fact have a show. Awesome. There we go. So anything new in your world, Clint? Anything to announce?
Oh, it's getting hot. Hot is hot here. So and I'm in farm country, so it's the one part of Arizona that's hot and humid. So.
Oh, when's your harvest season? You're growing dates, right?
Yeah, dates, and then there's tangelos and grapes and oranges and grapefruits and all kinds of craziness around here. So.
Wow, all on your farm or just dates on your farm?
Well, I just have dates and some young saplings on mine. So those are peaches and pomegranates and some other stuff that are in the future. But my neighbors all have farms too. So.
Have you seen those grafted fruit trees that have lemons and grapefruits and oranges all on the same tree?
Yeah, my wife actually, we have one. She bought the pluot, and then there's different types of pluots. There's like 4 of them grafted onto that one tree.
Yeah, those things are so cool.
Yeah, I want to do one. I want to do one with my favorite citrus, like navel orange, some grapefruits, some lime for Corona. And then maybe something else.
So, Kyle, how is your expat migration going?
Being a digital nomad is a wonderful lifestyle. Actually, like as we were like pulling out of our driveway, so we drove from Phoenix, and right now we're in the Panhandle in Florida. I'm in Destin, but it's hilarious. We're like, I guess we're digital nomads now. Here we go. But we've been here for a week. We leave tomorrow, and then we head up to Virginia, and then we're kind of in a holding pattern from there. We'll be in Virginia Beach, which is about 3.5 hours to DC and to the consulate. And then as soon as the borders open, we can run up and apply for our visas. We will. So just a wait and see now.
That's pretty cool.
At least till June 30th now, right? That's how long you got to wait till, at least as it looks right now?
Yeah, so we hear a lot of conflicting things. I haven't seen anything new unless something came out like today or last night. But it looks like they're going to open July 1st for some countries and not all. And they probably, if they're basing it on how well the country's doing with the virus, I don't think the U.S. is going to be for a little bit. quarantine there, and then we can get in. That's an option. Perhaps they will have quarantine places like they're actually talking about, like Koh Samui, so like one of the nicest islands. You can actually just go there if you're from one of the countries not doing great, and you have to quarantine in paradise for 14 days, which sounds terrible to me. And I just don't know what I would do on the beach. But yeah, so I mean, it's just a real, we don't know what's happening, so just kind of have to wait and see.
So, when I hear the term digital nomad, I usually think of, 20 somethings who are single and just going to live on beaches while coding from a beach. Are there a lot of
I'm not 20. I'm not 20.
Are there a lot of digital nomad families?
There are, actually. There are, which is actually one of the reasons that we chose Chiang Mai. I think I've been to Chiang Mai 3 times, but last time I had my wife and son were with me, and we were able to meet a lot of people that live in Chiang Mai full time, that are expats. So from the U.S., UK, Canada, Australia, and they do digital jobs, and they travel a lot, like we travel, for conferences or whatnot. But their mindset is, why not just live in a cooler place? And Chiang Mai is a pretty cool place, and so kind of going to join that crowd, I guess.
Very cool. Well, you'll have to keep us informed on how the move goes. We're excited to watch your progress through the whole thing.
For sure. Good times.
Let's see here. Oh, went way too far ahead, I think. Or no, this is the wrong one. No, too far ahead. Here we go. So we have a giveaway for July 8th. So we're giving away a copy of Link Whisperer. Do you know much about this tool, Kyle?
Not too much yet. I believe. No, I don't know. I know too much. I think I know what it does, but I would hate to say and be wrong. And it's with internal links. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's a system, like it's a WordPress plugin or a software plugin for internal linking. So if
I had it when it first came out. It was a little buggy, but basically the premise is, it was, as we all know, when you're analyzing websites, internal linking seems to be the number one neglected thing. So Link Whisperer, if you publish a post, it'll go through and analyze your content, and then it's already analyzed your site, and it says, here are these pages, and here's the recommendations that we give you for the anchor text. And you push a button, and it'll build a link for you. I had it on a couple sites. Like I said, I got it when it was early. It was buggy, but these guys have been doing some more and more stuff to it. So it actually helps significantly if you're just not one of those people that, like I do mind maps. So when I build out a site, I have mind maps and I know where I'm going. If you're not one of those people, Link Whisperer kind of helps you out and just lets you decide where you should put your backlinks for your internal stuff to leverage the most power of your website. So that's a really good giveaway. I'd try it out or sign up if you can.
Very cool. So yeah, if you're looking for a solution to do internal linking, we're giving away a copy of this. So all you have to do is join IMG, complete your profile, including the profile picture, and then find the contest post in the lounge and comment on it to enter. So good luck with that. Check it out and check out the rest of IMG. There's a lot of awesome content on there. And SEO this week, what can people expect?
This week for the Meet the Expert segment, we had Robert Pordillo. We talked about conversion rate optimization. I think it's a little under half an hour conversation. It was really good. And then I did, again, some more whiteboard stuff. And we were talking about S3s and cloud hosting for link building and building web pages. Beyond that too, for landing pages and etc. So it was a good episode.
Awesome. Yeah, if you haven't seen SEO this week, it's an awesome YouTube show. I highly recommend that you go and subscribe to it. It'll double the amazing content you get every week. So check that out. And so that brings us to our topic, seeing what Googlebot sees. So this is a dive into a trick that I like to use, because as an engineer, I kind of know a bit about the back-end technologies of how web browsers work. I got my start at the National Center for Supercomputing Applications, which is at the University of Illinois, and that's where the graphical web browser was born. I had the office across the hall from Mark Andreessen for a couple of years, and he's the person who authored the NCSA Mosaic web browser that would later go on to be turned into Netscape Navigator. And so, you know, my roots go all the way back to that point, and a lot of SEOs alive today weren't even born when I started working with the web. And so it really, you know, dates how old I am in a sense, but it also gives me a lot of visibility into how things were built and how they evolve. And so with that, there's this concept that I keep running into in the support channels for my software, where I sometimes get these SEOs who are newer to the game and they don't understand a lot of the technical concepts that happen between client and server and how the web browsers work. And so what some of these SEOs are doing is they will go and visit a web page and they will look at the content in the web browser that is rendered. They're looking at that final production view, and then they look for keywords in that, and they try to glean how to tune a page just by simply looking at the rendered content. And that's a very bad way to do it. And typically what happens in my support channel is they come to me and they say, Ted, this report is no way correct. It says I need to add 213 more keywords to the page, and it says this competitor is driving up that measurement. But when I go and look at the page, I only see the keyword 4 times on screen. Well, did you view source? And usually, people that are new, they don't know to view the source. You view the source, and that's, what's going to get rendered. It's not the actual rendered version. It's where the rendering starts. But then when you get into that source, you see the keywords appear in a lot more places. Not all of them are visible on screen. And then even using that source is a bit of a problem. There's a lot of SEO tools out there that just use that source. They don't render the page. But when you don't render the page, you don't account for all the modifications to the content that happen from JavaScript or things that get loaded in Tag Manager. Dynamically queried content using Ajax and JSON and web services, and all of those things can very dramatically change the page. So even using the HTML source, when you view source, that can lead you down the wrong path. That can get you the wrong result. At least about 15% of the time, if not more. And then ultimately what you need to do is you need to render the page completely and inspect the DOM. And if you wanted to behave just like Googlebot is behaving, you would want to get a snapshot of the DOM 20 seconds after the document ready event, because that's what Googlebot does. So any changes to the DOM after that 20 seconds, Google's going to be blind to those changes. So there's even a way to improve upon using the DOM, and the DOM is the rendered HTML, the final rendered HTML, and all of the assets that it needs to display on the screen. And so even capturing the DOM could be improved by simply capturing the DOM at 20 seconds after document ready. But that's a hard one to do. So typically the best software tools and the best SEOs, they're working with the DOM instead of the HTML source. Does that make sense? Any?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So when you're using a browser like Chrome, there's a way to inspect the DOM. And the way you typically do it is you'll right-click on a page and you'll say inspect, and it'll pull up a window that has this HTML tree that you can expand and collapse, and it has this elements heading. Then you know you're working with the DOM. If you right-click and say view source, you're going to get the source before the rendering started. But when you inspect, you're actually looking at the DOM at this point in time. And what you can do is you can copy the outer HTML of the HTML tag, and you can paste that into any text editor you want, and then you can search the rendered source. And Clint mentioned a plugin that he uses for inspecting the DOM. It's an alternative to doing this copy-paste methodology with the text editor. What's that plugin you use, Clint?
It's a bookmark, and I can share it in the notes of the show on IMG for everybody.
Okay. So yeah, if you want to know that tool, you'll have to join IMG and look at the show notes. But one way of working with the DOM is to copy it out of the inspector and do your searches in a text editor of your choice. So the reason we're talking about the DOM in web browsers and what Googlebot sees is that all modern web browsers use a library called HTML Tidy. This library is like 10 to 15 years old, so it's not new by any means. It has been improved over time. And what Tidy does is it tries to fix broken HTML before the web browser tries to render what it should look like on the screen. So this is a very important validation that keeps web browsers working properly. And so if you forget a closing tag, if you put, a certain tag in the wrong part of the page, Tidy comes in and fixes all of that for you. Then Chrome will render the page and make it interactive. And because of that, people will say, well, Ted, how does Googlebot handle, if you nest title tags inside of each other, one after another? Well, the way you see how Googlebot is going to handle that is you create an HTML file on your desktop with that situation, and then you use the Chrome inspector to inspect what Tidy does to fix it, because that's what Googlebot is going to work with. Googlebot's going to work with not just the DOM, they're going to work with a Tidy version of the HTML that renders into the DOM. So understanding Tidy is key, but it's also a black hat thing, because anything that Tidy doesn't do well creates opportunities for cloaking. And so we'll look at some of that too. But Chrome, as all other browsers, use Tidy, and Googlebot uses Chrome, so Googlebot uses Tidy. And that's why we want to look at this. This is probably one of the most important factors of understanding how to see things as Googlebot sees them. And we know Chrome uses Tidy because the Chromium source code is open source, and you can actually go in and see the library. Okay, So inspecting the DOM shows us how Tidy handles things. So over here in the upper left, I have this HTML that I wrote where I nested an H3 with a keyword inside of an H2 with a keyword inside of an H1. So I'm trying to get this keyword in all three headings. But it turns out this doesn't work in Google. You don't get the keyword in each of those headings when you do it this way. And the reason you don't is because of Tidy. So when we load this in a browser, so we have our browser window down here, I created a HTML file on my desktop and opened it in Chrome. And then I inspect it to see the rendered DOM. I can see that Tidy unnested those. I put the H1 that's empty, H2 that's empty, H3 as my keyword. So where I would have thought that I would have gotten a keyword in all three headings, I didn't. I got a keyword in an H3 and 2 empty headings. And so this is one way of seeing how Googlebot is going to handle this HTML. I can already see its effect is going to be one keyword in heading. It's going to be its net effect. Any questions?
Ted, I see this all the time on sites where you inspect and you like people will call hit pop support and they'll be like, pop is saying that I've got 3 H1s on the page, but I only have 1. And you look at it and you see these empty ones, and that's exactly what they've done.
Yep. And so, yeah, you got to be careful about how all this works. And keep in mind that HTML is a standard. There is nothing in the HTML standard that says you can't nest headings. The problem is the browser is just doing its best with the standard, but it doesn't know what to do. It doesn't know how to render an H3 inside of an H2 inside of an H1. Chrome doesn't know what to do with this. And so Tidy is a non-standard way of just making this problem work. And so this is not a standards-based solution. This is an engineering solution to make Chrome work. So another example, I put my keyword in a lot of appropriate and inappropriate places of the HTML. So before the HTML tag, between the HTML and the head, in the head, between the close head and the body, in the body, between the closed body, the closed HTML, and then after the document. What does Tidy do? It puts them all in the body. So it used to be on older versions of Tidy, you could get away with a lot of this stuff, and any keywords that you would put in between the HTML tag and the head tag, these were cloaked. So you could cloak content by putting it in an inappropriate zone of the page, but modern Tidy doesn't let you do that anymore. So that cloaking technique went away as Tidy got improved. So how is this useful? So we can find cases that Tidy doesn't handle to discover new methods of cloaking. And it's also instant testing. So what's amazing about this is you get the results of your test as quickly as you can inspect them. So you can test a lot of different things and get instant results as to how it's going to be handled by Googlebot. And that makes it a very powerful tool, because anytime you can do rapid testing and get to those results, that's an amazing opportunity. So in this example, how will Googlebot handle this? We have 3 keywords, keyword 1, keyword 2, keyword 3, 3 titles. They're all in the head block where they're supposed to be. We just want to see what Tidy does with them. Turns out Tidy's fine with it, leaves it alone, but Chrome only uses the first one. And so we need testing to see if Googlebot is only going to use the first one as well. And if that's the case, then these additional titles, are potentially cloaked zones of the page. Like you could put content in there that, nobody's going to see unless they're looking for cloaked content. So trying it with HTML comments. So keyword 1 through keyword 7, just like before, all the areas of the page. Now before, when they weren't comments, they all went into the body tag. But here, that didn't happen. Keyword 1, keyword 2, and keyword 4 were allowed to exist in between the zones of the page. So I left keyword 3 alone, and then 6 and 7 got moved into the body by tidy. So even that example where it was just keywords instead of keywords and comments, it have different behavior. So then I tried putting titles everywhere. So instead of comments everywhere and keywords everywhere, I'm doing the titles. So keywords 1 through 7, and again, putting title tags everywhere. We thought they would all go to the head block, but they don't. Some will actually go to the body block. And I tested this out. When you have a title in the body block, Chrome still finds it. It's apparently looking for the first title. But this concept probably messes with a number of SEO tools. So if you want to mess with people who use SEO tools that don't understand these tidy concepts and don't do their matching the same way that Googlebot does, you can probably mess with them using this method. So the way it works is you put a title, show Google this as your first title, and then you cloak some content. Tidy will put them both in the head block in this particular example, but you'll see the show Google this is the actual one being used, and then you're cloaking. And so if we did this with JavaScript, so I put in jQuery, made the title be this SEO tool sucks, and then I use jQuery to swap the title with normal website title. We see in the browser, you get the normal website title. But if you go and inspect the title tag in software that isn't doing the rendering, those tools are going to say this SEO tool sucks. You can actually create diagnostic content to test SEO tools to see how they're handling the DOM in these types of behaviors. So any SEO tool that is specifically looking for title tags in the head block only are susceptible to this, and any SEO tools that aren't rendering the JavaScript are susceptible to this. So you actually have two paths of figuring out if an SEO tool is doing the right thing and trying to just parse the title tag. So I imagine in a couple of years, there'll be a whole cottage industry of testing pages that analyze SEO software to see where its faults lie. So the next question is, does JavaScript bypass this tidy library? And so I created a page and that has jQuery, and the HTML tag has an ID, and I'm going to replace the HTML of the whole page, and I'm going to give it some invalid HTML. So I'm putting my title tag in between the HTML tag and the head open block. But tidy catches that. Anytime you edit a page that gets drawn on the screen, it has to go through tidy again. and Tidy moves it from the inappropriate place inside the head block. So JavaScript does not get you around Tidy. And then finally, there's one more method of seeing what Googlebot sees from this engineering sense. Know that you can like go to Google Search Console and get a picture of, what the page looks like, but it's debatable as to whether or not that's the same Googlebot that is actually crawling your website. What we found in the past is that the Google Search Console incarnation of Googlebot doesn't accelerate time the way the actual Googlebot does. So it leads us to think that they're different code bases. But there's an advanced method where you probe Googlebot with JavaScript. So you get information out of what Googlebot sees by executing JavaScript on the page, and you dynamically add that information you're trying to get at to the title or meta description. And what that does is if you have a special keyword on that page, you can then search that special keyword and look at your title and meta description to get the information as Googlebot sees it. And it's a very useful tool for being able to do things like detecting Googlebot. Because Googlebot, one of the things we found in testing is that they don't change the random seed. And the random seed determines what random numbers you can generate. And because Googlebot doesn't change that, they always roll the exact same sequence of random numbers on every page. So you can actually detect Googlebot by rolling 5 random numbers and seeing if they match that fingerprint. And so with that knowledge, you can then have the JavaScript code you write to make those random numbers, put them into the page title. You search your magic keyword on your test pages, and you'll see that they all have the same sequence of random numbers in the search results. And so that's the advanced method. That's the type of method that we use in testing, but it's another way of getting it how Googlebot is seeing things. And so that's probably a big, meaty mind dump that you probably are still trying to consume. But any initial thoughts?
I think a good follow-on episode would be walking us through that last slide, like this is how you use it kind of thing. I'm sure I'm not the only one who's like, what? You know what I mean? So
yeah,
just having you walk through that and then kind of show the application.
We could do that for next week.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think that would be perfect, actually. I would love to see that.
Any other thoughts on Tidy?
I like it as because you talked about rendering the DOM a lot when you're doing the keyword density stuff. And then my normal habits of looking at the web and looking at view source and all that, I'm like, it all looks the same to me. You know what I mean? And then seeing it from this perspective and then looking at Digital Ear, because I told you I did it in Oxygen and it uses predominantly jQuery for the coding, and then the DOM is completely different. All the text now shows up. So my view source versus rendering the DOM was actually really enlightening, which brought me to that bookmarklet. So now I understand better why tools like Cora, they do, or I'm assuming they're rendering the DOM to help you get the keyword density versus just looking at the sources of the page, so you get a more accurate number. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's
yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, because of the JavaScript, because of the things you load in Tag Manager, your web page might be very different than what you have in the raw source. And typically those things add content. They don't often change what's there, but they could change what's there. They could completely change the page. and it's a pretty big issue. And with JavaScript framework websites, it's a very big issue. Yeah.
It'd be interesting too to compare, like if you use the mobile friendly testing tool, you can switch over to HTML and you can see what HTML Google's looking at it. That would be an interesting compare as well. Are there any differences there on some of those like JavaScript heavy pages or anything like that that compared to what you can inspect using Tiny?
Yeah, and I'd imagine that there's a complete lack of SEO tool testing procedures. Like, how do you really run a tool through its paces to find out if it's prone to common problems? I envision a world where in 1 or 2 years there are like these standardized test cases that'll be published on the web, and you point your SEO tools at these URLs or at these keywords, and this system will come back and give you a report of the problems it found with the tool, so you understand the limitations better. I think eventually there will probably need to be a system like that, because there's so many tools on the market. Last count there were thousands. How do you tell which tools reliably or responsibly handle source code in the way you think it should be handled? And that's, probably somewhere the industry needs to go if it expects to have any sort of, a standard, tool set for performance and for accountability and for reliability. And if you want to get, reproducible, reliable results, then your measuring stick needs to work every time. It can't work 85% of the time. It needs to work all the time. And so, it's an advanced, very academic concept, but it's an important one. And I think it's one that really distinguishes where you're at in the SEO spectrum. Are you just looking at what's on the page? Are you actually viewing source? Or do you know to work with the rendered DOM? Because that's where you're going to get your accurate answers. And I think it really distinguishes where people are at in their SEO life cycle. But with that, we'll go to questions. I don't see any, but last chance for questions. Other than that, any final thoughts?
No, good stuff, Ted. Loved it.
Thank you. All right, then. We'll go back to networking. Thanks a lot, everyone.